Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Travel Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Staci.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah.
And today we are talking about Liechtenstein. Sarah and I, before the recording, were trying to figure out where we know that from, because we both remember that it's from some sort of movie where someone says it like that, and we just
Liechtenstein.
we can't figure it out. But it's just fun to say it that way. I don't know why. It just is.
I looked it up, and Knight's Tale came up, so maybe that's what we're thinking of when he announces Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein. But
We'll go with that.
I feel like it's something else.
I do too, but we can't figure it out, so we'll move on. Maybe by the end of the episode, who knows? So, Liechtenstein is actually the 6th smallest country in the world. Just misses out on the top 5, dang it. And it's so small, it takes little more than half an hour to drive from one end to the other.
That's amazing.
I can't even,
I grew up in Montana, and we live in California now, so
Right.
north to south it takes forever. Montana, east to west, takes like 14 hours to get across.
Yeah, no, I can't. What? I mean, it's a country. It is its own country, and yet there's no airports in it because it's so small.
Right.
I'm just like,
is there anything in it? I mean, there has to be something, but it takes a
there's
half
people in it.
I mean, is it just one giant city?
No, it's not that either. There's actually multiple cities, and yet half an hour from, yeah. And I always feel that way. Maybe I'm just super spoiled by A, being American, and B, being a Californian, that like my idea of normal sizes for things is completely off.
Right.
Because California, like, not even from end to end, but just like, it's like minimum 8 hours to get even from like 1/3 of the way through to 1/3 from the other side. Mm-hmm. It's just like, what the heck? It's like, that threw me off when, like, people on the East Coast who would like live in Pennsylvania and work in New York. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. You what? You live in one state and work in a state?
Yeah, that always seemed a little weird to me too.
Because you definitely can't do that in California unless you're like right on the border with Nevada or something.
Or Oregon. Not that there's much up there on
There's
the border.
Not much. Yeah, there's not much up there. There's mountains and yeah. But yeah, so Liechtenstein, very, very small country. It's ridiculously small. But in that way, sort of special, I guess you could say, because you can't imagine a lot of people go to Liechtenstein all the time. It's so small. I didn't even know where it was on a map. I had to look it up.
You know, if you went, you really could explore pretty much the whole country.
The whole how many times can you say that? I've literally seen every part of this country. I can prove it. But Liechtenstein is one of only 2 countries in the world that are doubly landlocked, which means that not only is it completely surrounded by land, but the countries that surround it are also completely surrounded by land.
Wow. What's the other one? Did you say one of 2?
Yes.
Okay.
The other one is Uzbekistan.
Huh.
So yeah, Liechtenstein has Switzerland on the west and Austria on the right, and it's just sort of there in between.
Yes.
But again, it's very, like, you have to get into one of those sort of zoomed in to Europe maps to actually see it. You can't really see it on most
it's gotta
world
be
maps.
So tiny.
Half an hour. The national language is German, but the main language is a sort of Alemannic German dialect. But it's a traditional Catholic country, so that on Sundays there's like nobody out except for tourists. So you can clearly tell who's not from Liechtenstein
right.
on Sundays.
The heathens.
They're just not really Catholic heathens.
Right.
So really Catholic heathens might not be out either, but you wouldn't know that. The legal drinking purchasing age is $16 years for wine, beer, and cider, but 18 for spirits and spirit-based beverages. And I'm not a drinker, so this was never anything I really cared about. But I do remember, like, my roommate talking about how excited all her friends were when they did their senior trip, which was to London, where the drinking age is 18. And they're like, we're 18. And the guys were like, no, we will watch you like crazy. Don't. So, yeah, you should have gone to Liechtenstein. 16, you could have done that, like, junior year. You'd be good.
Reasons to go to Liechtenstein.
I am totally not advising teenagers to drink. But anyways, it is a prosperous, highly industrialized, free enterprise economy with a vital financial service sector, which is, I think, one of the very few things that most people know is like Liechtenstein and Switzerland, and that's where you store your money overseas. To the point that actually in the main capital, Vaduz, there are more registered businesses than there are people living there.
Oh, jeez.
Because we won't go into tax evasion. Moving on.
See, in Montana, there are more cows than people. Registered businesses probably better. I don't know. Cows, registered businesses.
Maybe.
It depends.
Liechtenstein has the highest per capita gross domestic product and is one of 5 countries that have no government debt, which I did not even know could be possible. I just thought that, like, once we started with industrialized economy, all countries had debt to different countries, and that's what sort of hinders us from immediately going to war over every little thing, is we won't get our money back. Or I just assumed all countries had debt somewhere. Again, my perspective of America and California has completely thrown me off for everything else. That there are actually 5 countries that don't have debt.
That's just good for them.
Amazing for them.
Yeah. Let's move to Liechtenstein. I don't really know why, but
I can't speak German.
Yeah, there's that. The thing about Liechtenstein that's not related to what we were just talking about, but when I try to look stuff up, I keep coming across Roy Lichtenstein, who was a pop artist.
Is that his real name?
I don't know if that's his real name, but so kind of along the lines of like Andy Warhol or something like that. But I did an image search for Liechtenstein, and all of his art came up. I had to type in Liechtenstein country.
Wow,
his name is spelled slightly different, so that I guess that makes a difference. But yeah, so not the art, looking for the country.
But along with the whole not tax evasion that we won't talk about thing, Liechtenstein participates in a customs union with Switzerland, and so it uses the Swiss franc as its national currency and is represented by Switzerland in embassies around the world, because I guess it doesn't have its own, because really, really small country.
Right. Speaking of small country, can I read you what I just discovered that may or may not be true, but I hope it's true? Snoop Dogg once tried to rent the entire country of Liechtenstein for a video shoot. And the main reason they said no is because he didn't give them enough notice. Wow. Anyone can rent Liechtenstein for $70,000 in 2010. Wow. $70,000 a night, which includes customized street signs, temporary currency, and accommodations for 150. Dear God, I hope that's true.
Me too. That sounds like one of those really crazy rich celebrity things that they do that. I'm like, you know what? I might actually want to do that too.
I want to rent Liechtenstein to get married.
This is my country for the day. You cannot be here. That would be fun. But Liechtenstein, I'm not sure if this is, I don't think this, it's a little confusing if this is the country or the royal family, but we'll be celebrating a 300th anniversary next year. So that would probably be something to be around, this 300. And I mean, you could probably literally see how every city in Liechtenstein celebrates the 300th anniversary just within the day.
Yeah.
I actually thought about if you've ever seen, I think it's the original Mr. Chips, where he meets his wife by going on a walking tour through Europe. And I would really want to go on a walking tour, like, through Liechtenstein, just because I could, like, do my whole walking tour in Liechtenstein in, like, a week and just be like, okay, cool.
I walked in the entire country.
Like, I did a walking tour through an entire country. Oh, that's amazing. Which one? Oh, Liechtenstein. Isn't it? It's a whole country. I did a walking tour of a whole country. You can't say otherwise. Oh, man. We're having too much fun with Liechtenstein.
So, as of 2011, the population of Liechtenstein is 36,304.
Wow.
That's impressive. I mean, it's tiny, so I don't know really per capita what that would be like, but...
I am pretty sure there's more people than that just in my zip code.
Wow, maybe.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. But interesting fact, and I I already knew this, but I think it's very interesting since we're all completely losing our minds right now about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, is that Liechtenstein is actually the country with the first person of African descent to marry into a European royal family.
Go Liechtenstein.
Yes. So it's Princess Angela who married, he's not the like crown prince, but a prince of Liechtenstein back in 99 or 2000. And they actually have a son who was born in 2001 and is actually like somewhere in the line of succession to be the head.
Did you just say for to be?
For to be. I'm speaking about royals here. I should almost be heralding this. For to be the future monarch of Liechtenstein. Why that required that accent, I don't know.
I don't know either. Oh, she's lovely. Just looked up their wedding pictures.
She's actually, I think she designed her dress. She was a fashion designer. Lived in New York. Very interesting. Princess Angela, quite interesting. But the royal family themselves, quite beloved in Liechtenstein, and they're recognizable by their cars, which evidently use their birth year for the license plate number. Which, my question is, what then if, like, one of the royal family has twins?
Right. Are they like 1980A? 1980B?
Or 1980 first letter of your name, maybe? Unless you both have the same letter of your name, then we're really throwing things off. But the family, the royal family lives in a castle on a hill, and it's literally a castle on a hill, even though that sounds very much like fairy tale-ish. It's an actual castle on a hill.
Part of me wants to live in a castle on a hill. Part of me thinks it'd be very cold.
I think it depends on your climate.
Right, and your castle. I mean...
Well, yeah, castles, especially if they're older castles.
How well it's insulated, etc.
But this castle on the hill is the one thing you can see throughout the entire capital area, and it's the most photographed image in the Principality. Which, of course, makes sense because it's a castle on a hill.
Right.
Like, I feel all castles on a hill must be, like, super photographed just because. Isn't that, like, your Cinderella sort of dream going on there? Although, you can't, unfortunately, you can get up to the castle and sort of walk around it, but you can't get into it because
it's
the royal family lives there and they're like, go away. So, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Today we are talking about Liechtenstein. I don't know why I feel the need to say it that way, but it's fun.
I have gone down a Liechtenstein rabbit hole of looking things up. It's quite fun.
I'm just now thinking of Liechtenstein and its size and rabbit holes and moving on. So because Liechtenstein is not that big at all, you would think there's not a lot to do there. And you'd be kind of right, kind of not. Liechtenstein it seems it's sort of definitely something you could do in a day and see like all the main sites with, unless you were hiking around it, in which case, again, see the whole country in a week and be like, I saw all of the country. Mm-hmm. This is now becoming like almost like a bucket list goal.
To see all of Liechtenstein.
Or to be like one of those things where you have those like random book challenge things of like, read a book by a woman, read a book by an author who's dead, read a book that's 100 pages, to have one of those really random things of see all of the country. I'll do Liechtenstein.
I just saw a list today that said read a book that's purple.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
But then like the way some people will try and find the shortest book to match that category,
right,
to make up their numbers,
of course,
to be like, how many countries have you seen all of? Start with the really small ones and work your way up.
Actually, yeah, you could start with the smallest,
right?
I mean, you would hit Liechtenstein 6th,
right?
But yeah,
so you could do this in 10 countries and you probably still wouldn't have done like maybe a full month, who knows. So anyways, the main capital of Liechtenstein is Vaduz, which is also kind of fun to say. Mm-hmm. most of Vaduz actually consists of modern buildings, which is amazing because, again, this is where that castle on a hill is located.
Right.
But because that castle was, I won't say recently because it's like not even in, I think, anyone I've ever known's lifetime, but recently for like a royal family chosen to be the royal residence, most of Vaduz wasn't really built up. So most of the buildings are now modern. But that kind of goes along with Liechtenstein being this sort of financial place in Europe, so that they have a lot of like tax-free luxury goods stores, if that's your thing. But it doesn't give you that sort of old world European-y feel. Again, same for the castle on the hill you can't get into.
Right. But you can look at it and dream, I guess.
Maybe. But interestingly, the center of Vaduz is referred to by the locals as, and I do not have ever taken German, so I apologize. I'm going to go with Stadtel.
No, I can't. Now I've lost the place in my notes where that word is. Oh,
it's S-T-A with a, what is that, an umlaut? D-T-L-E. Whichever what it is, it translates essentially as small town. And that's because the area between the government district and the town hall is pedestrianized and closed to cars.
You know, Liechtenstein should be the country whose name means the village, not Canada.
Right. Well, I think that they actually do have a nickname for Liechtenstein that's something like small country or something.
Well, that would make sense.
But yeah, Canada, you have stolen the rightful title of the village from Liechtenstein, or one of the 5 smaller countries that there are. That is not fair.
Yeah.
I decided that. But anyways, in Vaduz, there is, and I'm completely going to butcher this because it's one of those wonderful German words that's really long, but I'm sure means exactly what it is in German, except that, again, didn't take German. Liechtensteinisches Landsmuseum. Maybe? Something like that.
Something like that.
Close.
Maybe Landesmuseum. I don't know if you pronounce all of the syllables.
Syllables. Do we pronounce all of the syllables?
The syllables.
Do you know there were multiple people in syllables? Anyways.
Yep.
This, whatever museum this is, that I will not try and repronounce, it has a surprisingly interesting romp through Liechtenstein's past and heritage.
Okay.
And the natural history from the medieval times to, interestingly, the manufacture of false teeth and stuffed alpine animals.
Okay.
Interesting history you've got going there.
Yeah, from witch trials to false teeth to stuffed animals, we've got a museum. I mean, that would be an interesting romp.
And the history of this is, it's all sorts of, it's one of those middle of Europe, so it's super complicated things that I never fully learned in history, like where exactly is Prussia and how the heck is a duke of anything on par with a king. But yeah, Europe's history, very complicated in places.
Sure.
Where Liechtenstein first belonged to someplace else and then like was part of the Holy Roman Empire and then was given to the royal family. It's complicated thing. I'm just like, man, American history, and maybe it's just because we're only 200 something years. Not this complicated. Thank you.
Well, some people might find it complicated if they didn't, just because they didn't grow up learning it.
True. I mean, I found it complicated enough to the point that I'm not quite sure what the War of 1812 was about, just that there was one. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend in high school who could interestingly name all the presidents in order and like the one thing they're known for that no other president is known for.
That's a party trick.
So like one of them was known for being the first president with like a running water toilet or something in the White House. That was the only thing that separated them from all the other presidents. I'm like, okay.
Nice.
That's an interesting fact you spent time to memorize.
You didn't do anything during your term, but
well, more importantly for my friend, you spent time to memorize that.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Those are brain cells you could have used for something else, but that's okay.
Right. But anyways, Liechtenstein has a national day, which is August 15th, when there are fireworks and speeches, and the prince invites all the Liechtensteiners, and that is evidently the word for them, Liechtensteiners,
okay,
over to his place for a glass of wine or beer. And this is one of the interesting, is the prince, I think, owns like his own vineyard and winery.
Cool.
Because... Why not?
Sure.
This is like a landed noble gentry place
Right.
that also happens to be a country.
So apparently, the climate in Liechtenstein at some place is conducive to a vineyard.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't really know. Looking at the map, I can't tell. What what the climate would be like in
Between
Liechtenstein.
Switzerland and Austria.
Yeah, so that seems cold. But I don't
Right,
know.
that's my first thought too.
Yeah.
But yes, somewhere. And I'm curious to know, like, if I go to Liechtenstein on August 15th of next year, because it's the national day for the 300th anniversary, can I get in even though I'm not a Liechtensteiner? And also, can I become a Liechtensteiner?
I also just read something about that, and I don't know if it's true. Again, because I haven't fact checked it. In order to become a citizen of Liechtenstein, every member of the country has to vote. That doesn't sound true, but that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't want to let them in.
That grumpy old man at the end of the road, he's like, no, I hate her.
She didn't smile at me. She's not getting into our country. Wow, yeah. I read somewhere, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but that something like either 2/3 of Liechtensteiners are not native Liechtensteiners, or 2/3 are native Liechtensteiners, and therefore 1/3 are not native Liechtensteiners. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
And might have had to be voted in.
I evidently just really like saying the word Liechtensteiner.
Liechtensteiner.
It sounds almost like a superhero group or something. I don't know. Liechtensteiner.
Liechtensteiners
Liechtenstein and Liechtenstein.
assemble.
On that note, we're going to take another short break.
Thank God.
Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Today we're talking about Liechtenstein, which I saw because, and again, very small country, half an hour, that there's not too many hotels in Liechtenstein. And reviews for one of them was sort of mixed because if they wanted to, and I'm not saying they do, but if they wanted to, they could be sort of, we'll just charge random fees when we want to because you don't really have a choice.
Right.
There's only so many hotels here. So if you're not staying here, you're sleeping outside? Which,
Right.
I mean, the
In your
countryside
car.
of Liechtenstein is very pretty, but I don't know that I'd want to sleep outside there. Although evidently you can hitchhike pretty easily in Liechtenstein. And that's how a lot of people get there because it's kind of hard to get there. You can't fly in. There's no airports.
Right.
So you have to fly into either somewhere in Germany or somewhere in Switzerland and then sort of come in either by train or bus or by the road or hitchhike if you want to, or hike because Liechtenstein is part of a group of countries that I forget what it's called that basically have agreed we're not going to have sort of borders between us. And so you can just easily enter countries willy-nilly.
Interesting.
And you don't actually require a passport stamp from Liechtenstein.
Oh.
You actually have to pay to get one
Oh,
if you
man.
want one. And
I would want one.
Well, but here's the thing. For some countries, if you have that stamp, it like falsifies your passport.
Oh, good
That your passport's not considered real anymore in that country because Liechtenstein,
That's just weird.
all sorts of things going on with all sorts of, you would never hear this anywhere else's. But
Right,
Liechtenstein.
right. Hey, I have an answer to your 300-year anniversary.
Uh-huh.
So 1790 is when it became, when the Principality of Liechtenstein was founded.
Okay.
So there you go.
Good to know. All right. But the tip for today, if you go to one of the I'll say 3, and I apologize if it's not 3, but I'll say 3 hotels, at least in Vaduz, if not in all of Liechtenstein. I'm going to assume, I would hope there's more than 3 hotels in all of Liechtenstein, but maybe only 3 in Vaduz. Something you might and probably should do no matter where you stay.
Right, we're not just saying this because
this
of Liechtenstein.
No, although I'm sure there are certain things that only apply in Liechtenstein. But to check for bed bugs, and I actually saw a thing that this is like one of the first things you should do, like immediately upon getting into your hotel room, is to put your luggage and belongings in the bathroom, because bed bugs are harder to hide on tile, so you'd clearly see if they were there or not. And then take all the bedding off the bed and look at the mattress, because obviously they could wash sheets and stuff, but it's harder to wash a mattress.
Right.
And that bed bugs, if they've been there, tend to sort of leave, and this is super, super gross, blood.
Well, okay, you're right.
It's just like, but and now I'm totally thinking of that scene from Ocean's 13 with the hotel reviewer that they're totally terrible.
Oh, yes.
And it's just oh man, that poor guy. But him checking the bedding for bed bugs and like having those funny glasses, and it's just covered in them. It's like, oh my gosh, no. I thankfully have never encountered bed bugs, and I would totally like to keep it this way.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, there was an infestation of bed bugs at a theater in a town I used to live in. Like a group of people went to the theater and came home with bed bugs.
Oh,
how does that happen?
I don't know. And now that's why I think maybe that's why theaters are turning to leather seats.
Maybe. I don't know, but I'm all itchy now.
Right, yeah.
I need a shower.
Yeah, pull the bedding off the bed until you get to the mattress, and then use the flashlight app on your smartphone to check around the seams and all 4 corners, as well as the box spring and headboard, and look for that sort of either the bugs themselves or that blood that is sign that they at least were there. Also look around the furniture in the room and behind any framed art on the walls, because they can hide in those places. Mm-hmm. And then if you find evidence of bed bugs, ask the management for a new room, but do not have that room share a wall with the previous room, because bed bugs can easily move from one room to the other.
And then you start the process all over again and hope that your second room does not also have bed bugs.
I mean, if the second room does, at that point, new hotel, maybe.
Yeah.
I demand my money back. Hotel, what is the matter with you? Mm-hmm. I mean, hotel, what the heck? But if you find bed bugs, even if you were careful to put your baggage in the bathroom, whatever, still make sure you don't bring them home with you by like immediately washing all your clothing in hot water and vacuuming out your suitcase and then putting it in a big plastic bag so that any bed bugs that did somehow survive all of that can't get into the rest of your house.
Right. And kind of suffocate and die.
Yes. Better to suffocate and die in the plastic bag than invade and get in your couch and your bed and itchy. So we're going to move on.
Let's move on to the travel site.
So yes, the travel site for today.
Bedbugs.com. No.
I don't even know how that would be. Unless it's a site that's like warning you of places where bed bugs have been known to be. Otherwise, why do you have a bedbugs.com? Yeah. No, that's not the travel site. The travel site today is intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel calls itself the world's largest small group adventure tour company with over 100,000 travelers across the globe each year, 1,800 local staff, and over 1,000 different trips.
Okay.
So
what exactly is their niche? I mean, they say the small group adventure.
Right. So yeah, and we talked about another group travel site previously on this podcast, but for Intrepid Travel, what I think is really cool about it is the leaders for the tours are natives of the location they're in. Mm-hmm. So they're born and raised in the country they're actually going to. It's not someone trained by the company and then put there to lead the tour. This is an actual local who just happened to be hired by this company. And so they really have an insider's perspective on what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's got several different types of trip styles, I guess you'd say. Okay. It's got a basics, an original, and a comfort.
Okay.
So original is obviously self-descriptive. It's the way they originally offered the trips, and it's sort of a middle range kind of trip. Basics tends to attract younger people because it's cheaper, and so it's more bare bones, whereas comfort tends to attract older people because they're like, I've done all that and I want to relax and leisure, so they're willing to pay a bit more for the comfort, which is why it's called that. But Intrepid's also pretty cool because it has a lot of green goals, I guess you'd say. So it's committed to not just treading lightly, but to making a real difference by investing in local communities, human rights initiatives, wildlife conservation projects, and the environment.
Cool.
So Intrepid's been a carbon neutral business since 2010, which is one of the things that always sort of worries me about traveling is how do I offset that? And there are ways to do that, to like sort of pay to purchase to offset the carbon you use to travel. But Intrepid on their own is already like the whole business carbon neutral. We've got it covered.
Wow. If I could just learn to apparate, I think that would really reduce my carbon footprint.
I mean, yes, but
I don't think they've done any studies though, so probably I'd be screwing up the environment in some other way.
We're all on Harry Potter today with magic eyes and apparating. But anyways, Intrepid has a not-for-profit arm called the Intrepid Foundation, which has invested over 5 million Australian dollars into grassroots projects addressing issues such as healthcare, education, community development, and animal welfare. And
nice.
It's I think it's possibly the first global tour company to end elephant rides, which it kind of makes me sad that that's a thing, because I have a picture of when I was a young child and there was an elephant ride at like the state fair or something. And I'm just like, oh wait, the elephants are mistreated. Oh, I feel bad about that picture now. And I was really excited as a child.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I feel so terrible. But Intrepid is also ended lion walks.
What is a lion walk?
So I
don't think I know this.
It's you just walking through like a jungle with a lion because it makes you feel like George of the Jungle or something. I saw this for a different country where you could do lion walks with lions that were like being rehabilitated to the wild, but I'm not sure how you walking with the lion is rehabilitating them to the wild as they're walking with humans. My understanding of lion walks is clearly confusing.
Oh no, I think. Hold on. Let me look for some stuff.
All right. Intrepid has also taken a leadership position on child protection by removing orphanage visits from its itineraries. And we talked about, don't go to the orphanages, I believe, on the Siem Reap Cambodia episode, that because that was a popular tourist thing, some of those orphanages are not real, or they're like taking children from their parents, so they have enough children in the orphanages so that people will come see them, and it's just about getting the money and not about helping the kids. And so to counteract that, Intrepid is like, none of our trips will have orphanage visits. We just won't support that at all.
So it sounds like part of Lion Walk might be canned hunting, which yeah,
even worse,
trophy hunts,
terrible.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't want to do a lion walk, whichever one it is.
Right. Although at least you'd have the lion would have a much better chance if you were just walking around with it. Right.
So Intrepid has identified 9 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that it can contribute to as a tourism business, and has made it a goal to meet those 9. So it's really out there for not just really cool trips with actual people who know what they're talking about,
right,
but also being good for the earth as they do it.
Excellent.
So I looked it up. Intrepid, unfortunately, does not have a trip to Liechtenstein, but does have trips sort of around Liechtenstein.
And then you can walk in.
Right, literally. Just hitchhike your way to Liechtenstein. Because it's just that simple. We don't even need a trip specifically to Liechtenstein.
I would pretend that I was in The Sound of Music when they are at the end, when they are hiking over the mountains. It's Austria. Right. So I would be like hiking.
You could, hike from Austria. I guess you could. I actually saw, there's one trip they have. So my idea is, if ever I get married, that I'd want my honeymoon to sort of be like a grand tour. If you know what the grand tour is of Europe that wealthy young men used to do. And Intrepid has this trip that goes from Rome to Paris, with a bunch of stops on the way over like 3 weeks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be great. Now I just need to go and quickly get married so I can go on this trip.
But if you get married, then what all of your imaginary lovers?
I mean, it can still have imaginary.
I guess they'd still be imaginary, but
right?
I hope
no, oh man, that'd be amazing if like I got married and my imaginary lovers became real. That is a whole...
That's a conundrum right there.
A whole nother story.
Sounds like a really strange book.
On that note, we're going to end for today. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.